I want to talk about today is mainly just talk about how to increase that show up rate and different things that we can do as a team together in order to make sure as many appointments show up as possible. So there's a few different reasons people don't show up to appointments. And this is something that me and Mike realized, throughout time of dealing with no-shows, especially with advertising. Like if you start running paid advertising, you deal with a huge amount of no-shows. Like no-shows are an actual real bottleneck with paid advertising in it. And with organic, it's typically a lot better. We don't deal with too much no-shows within our business. Of course, there's, probably a few here and there throughout the week, but nothing that's too overwhelming to us. And it's because of this process that we've put in place to avoid no-shows happening. So as you guys know, who are already launching outreach and, having leads coming through, the main process that we're using is cold outreach to get these appointments booked. Now, the bottleneck or the problem becomes the fact that a lot of the individuals that you guys work with, one-on-one and personally within your businesses, not all of them are very, they're not working a set schedule based off of, as entrepreneurs or somebody who's running your own business or somebody who's even in the corporate world, they work off of a structured calendar. Like maybe they use Google Calendar, maybe they use an agenda, but there are a lot of individuals out there who don't use any of those things, right? So the one important thing to understand with this is that when someone books an appointment with us, ideally, we want them to accept the calendar invitation and use Google Calendar so that they show up to the appointment. But the problem becomes is that if we're working with individuals who aren't using Google Calendar or aren't using any form of calendar that we have available, then it becomes kind of difficult to really understand when that appointment is. Like they're going to forget, really, is what it is. And we have to stay top of mind to make sure that they don't forget because, our systems we have in place are going to give them appointment reminders, appointment confirmation to be able to get them to show up to that appointment. But people still ignore that stuff. So the question then becomes, how do we avoid a no-show happening? So there's a couple things we can do here. Number one, and this is probably my biggest recommendation with avoiding no-shows, is implementing a pre-call video. Now, what a pre-call video is it's essentially a video that gets sent out with the confirmation of the appointment that essentially gives them a little bit more background as to who you are, what you do, and the results that you've gotten with your clients. So it's a quick video, like no more than 10 minutes. You want it to be something that they can consume really fast, maybe even like a 5-minute quick video. But this touch point is a really valuable touch point in the appointment setting process because picture if you were someone who booked an appointment with yourself and you got a text, 10 minutes after you booked the appointment that said, hey, just wanted to confirm the time for, this date. Also, please watch this quick 5-minute video to get a stronger understanding of who I am, who I work with, and the results I've gotten with my clients. Talk to you soon, right? What that's going to do is that lead is going to go ahead and watch that video. They're going to get indoctrinated before the phone call. So they already come into that phone call knowing who you are, knowing how you've helped people, and knowing what you do to a high level, right? So that's why the pre-call video is probably the number one most important thing to increase that show up rate and to increase also your sales and your conversion, because when people show up to those phone calls, they'll already know those things. They'll already have a level of trust built with you so that they can kind of take that information and into the phone call and have a little bit more confidence in the phone call that they're going to be on. Now that actually takes me to my second point, which Mike and I realized about maybe 2 months ago, was that when we started running paid advertising aggressively, we realized that there was a huge discrepancy in people that were showing up to Zoom calls. So what we noticed was that because Zoom requires a higher level of commitment to be on that phone call, people have to worry about what they look like. They have to make sure that they have a camera set up. They have to make sure that they're sitting at a desk. And ideally, I know what you're thinking in your mind right now is like, well, I want somebody to be sitting there and attentive to the phone call, and you want them to be present. And I totally get that, but also understand the fact that when someone is on Zoom, we are like mentally triggered in so many ways where we're looking at ourselves. We're not really like, there's not as high quality of communication there. What I've realized is that a lot of people are looking at themselves. They're looking at the way that they look. They're looking at all these different things instead of focusing on the conversation. And a lot of this stuff happens subconsciously, as a lot of us know. So the big thing that we realized is we actually got completely rid of doing Zoom calls primarily because of this reason. We noticed that people weren't showing up to the calls because they felt like they had to, be all dressed up and ready for the call. They felt like it was too much of a commitment. Maybe they were busy, right? Maybe they were, like at a family member's house for the holidays, whatever the case may be, and it wasn't a good place for them to hop on a video call. Like, video requires another layer of commitment that I think really isn't worth the gain of connection on a Zoom call, if that makes sense. So like, I don't think that the increase in commitment is worth what you gain out of a Zoom call. I think phone calls are just as effective if used in the right way. And we've actually like proven it really strongly with our sales process, because our closing ratio has actually increased by taking phone calls instead of Zoom calls. And this is something that we didn't believe in before. We always like preached like, hey, Zoom calls, Zoom calls, Zoom calls, because there is a level of connection that's made when you're looking somebody in their eye. But at the same time, it's still virtual. So it's not like you're in person talking to them one-on-one. So we've actually realized over time that phone calls are your best bet. The other thing with phone calls is that if you call somebody on the phone, it goes directly to them. Their phone is ringing, they pick it up, right? Or they ignore it and you call them again and then they pick it up. Whereas with Zoom, we're kind of just sitting on Zoom, crossing our fingers and hoping somebody shows up to the Zoom. And by the way, if they don't use Google Calendar, if they don't use email, they're not going to be on that call, right? So with Zoom, a lot of times we're relying on almost somebody who's business oriented to be attentive, looking at their email, looking at their Google Calendar and hopping on the call, as opposed to, like people who aren't in that active business lifestyle or that structured lifestyle. A phone call is what's going to get their attention, right? So those are the two biggest things that I've noticed with no-shows that has dramatically increased our show up rate recently. And it's actually increased our closing ratio too, is one, the pre-call video, and two is phone calls instead of Zoom calls. Now, the other thing I want to mention with the pre-call video, because I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking like, what do I say on this video? What do I do on this video? In the course, in the Automated Coaching Engine course, in the last module, there's a webinar template on there that's really the perfect frame for a pre-call video. It's essentially the same as the webinar structure, except you just want to keep in mind the fact that this video is intended for somebody that already booked a call with you. So you're not convincing them to book a call, you're confirming the call, and then you're giving them more context as to who you are and what you do, right? So definitely dive into the video in the course that goes over the webinar template, because that will give you a framework that you can use to build your pre-call video. But like I said, also keep in mind the context of the fact that this person already booked a call with you. So you want to start the video with something along the lines of like, hey, I'm really looking forward to connecting with you on this upcoming call, and then getting into that topic instead of kind of tailoring it to an offer video. So there's already a template in the course, in the webinar structure at the bottom. It's like literally in the last module down there. So there's already one that's laid out for you. You can kind of plug in the terminology that's necessary there. I feel like it's kind of like Mad Libs back in the day. You can just kind of plug in the words that you need in order to get it done. But if you guys have any questions at all in the process, feel free to reach out to me. The other thing I want to talk about, which is the last point that I'll make with no-shows, and then we'll get into just kind of Q&A and anything that you guys need personally with the process, is branding. So with branding, I always talk about branding with every single aspect of this process of building a coaching business, because it really is the the number one driver for your success as a business is the branding on social media, right? Because what also can be happening in certain instances and certain structures is someone books a call with you, they get the notification that the call is coming up. They look at maybe a Facebook or an Instagram page, might not remember the interaction. They look at the content, doesn't really convince them to hop on the call, then they don't show up, so they don't say anything, and they go ghost forever, right? So we also want to make sure that we are showing up as much as possible on social media. There's a bunch of content in the new Automated Coaching Engine course. I go over Instagram, TikTok, Facebook content. Like, I go over a lot of that structure. So even like how much you should be posting, different ways to have converting content. So definitely dive into the course to learn more about how you can build effective content, because we have to understand that like the social media that we have nowadays with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, like all these different platforms, it's literally our business card in our coaching business. Like, it's especially when we get into outreach, and especially when we get into scaling through social media, they're going to be looking at your profile. They're going to be looking at who you are. And truth be told, it's unfortunate, but most individuals are going to judge based off of a profile and try and figure out if it's somebody that they do see a potential in working with, right? I think you guys probably even did it with us, right? You probably even looked into our social media and got a further understanding of who we are before booking a call with us, before doing any of that stuff. So understand that your prospects are doing the same thing. They're doing their research, they're looking into your profile, and just make sure that you have effective content and that you're speaking your message and you're talking to that target audience with your content, so that when they do come across your page, and if they do look at your page prior to the appointment, they're actually convinced that they need to be on that call, as opposed to, maybe I can skip out on this one, right? So those are the three things that are going to drastically increase your show up rate in your appointment setting process. Is number one, a pre-call video. Number two is phone calls over Zoom calls. And number three is branding and like effective social media content. One thing that I'll say with the phone calls over Zoom calls, by the way, because I know that's kind of like a big shift for a lot of people, is the phone call can just be your first call. It doesn't need to be your closing call. Like, you can still do your closing call and your actual offer and presentation of your offer. You can still do that on Zoom. But I recommend the first call that you have with a prospect being a phone call, because it's going to essentially ensure that they show up, and you can have that conversation on the phone, qualify them, follow our 10-minute call script that's in the course in the sales mastery section. I gave away scripts in there for a 10-minute call and a 60-minute call. So you can literally run them through the 10-minute script, qualify them, see if they're a good fit to hear more about your offer, set up a second call for your offer, and that's when you can close them on Zoom if you want to. But we don't even do any Zoom calls anymore unless we absolutely have to. And it's not because we don't want to. It's more so because we've actually found that phone calls have been more effective. So anyway, that is my quick 15, 20-minute spiel on no-shows and how we can optimize moving forward. Mike, do you have anything to kind of piggyback off of on that topic?
No, I think you covered everything. Pretty much the biggest thing that, like Mike was saying, that we really noticed was the Zoom transformation into phone calls on the first call was really good as far as like show up rate to that call. However, I will make a note. We literally had someone like show up that was like hungover, the other day, and like they had to like bounce because they were gonna throw up. It was hilarious, like listening to the recording. But but like that's kind of the thing that we noticed is, like Mike was saying, is like, it does increase the show up rate, but at the same time, people might not be as focused. So that might be something that you need to incorporate. If you find that your type of call like requires that, somebody be a little bit more in focus and in a good state of mind to take the call. They're not at Target shopping, things like that. But yeah, no, I think the other big thing for us was the pre-call video, we actually saw like a lot of engagement from that too. Like a lot of people responding to that message, saying that it was, great to see that, great to see what we do. Gives them like another level of, just interest in what we're doing. So yeah, no, I think that's perfect as far as, the, prefacing kind of like the best way to avoid no shows. It is something that, like we will always, like deal with in business, but especially in the sales side of things. But the goal here is just to minimize it as much as possible, So yeah, no, I think it was perfectly said, Mike.
I have a question.
Yeah, Alexa, what's your question?
Thank you. For the calls, I heard you say the first call and then the closing call. What is the difference? How come we aren't closing on the first one, please?
For sure. Yeah, so this is definitely contextual. Like it depends on the offer, and it depends on who you're speaking with, like who your actual prospect is. So with us, like internally, we do a one call close now and only book a second call if we absolutely have to. And we do like a one call like price drop where we put a discount on that one call if someone closes on that call specifically to encourage taking action. But the reason why you would do a two call over a one call is depending on who you're speaking to, some people will need to kind of be pre-framed a little bit stronger before a closing call, and some people won't. For instance, like all of you guys that work with us, you're all business owners. So you all came to our call understanding that we had a solution to something that you knew that we could potentially be a good fit in working together. And we didn't want to waste your time by taking 2 hours of your calendar up. So we drop it on a one call now. Because we understand that you're business owners, you have other things going on, you just want to understand like, what can you do for me? What's involved and what does it cost? Right. So like with business owners, you can get straight to the point, but in certain circumstances with like maybe life coaching or spiritual coaching and stuff like that, you have to kind of dig for a little bit more information on call number one and really understand if they're a good fit for your program prior to pitching them, if that makes sense. So like some people, you'll just have to spend more time with qualification and more time connecting with them as opposed to selling them on the first call. So that's a long answer. My short answer is that it depends on who you're speaking to. If it's a business owner, they probably just want to hear what you have to offer. So you can definitely do a one call close with business owners and, even like corporate executives, stuff like that. If you work with people in corporate, then one call close is cool. But with a lot of other individuals that don't work in the world of business, they might need a little bit more warming up prior to dropping a price to a program. Does that make sense, Alexa?
Yes, for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Of course. Anybody else have any other questions in regards to either today's topic or any other piece of business? Our Q&As are open to whatever you guys need.
So even if so you're saying that a phone call is has been working out better for you all, even if the closing or the show up rate is over 90%. You're saying that a phone call may be a little bit better, and so let's say the closing rate ratio or the show up ratio is over 90% and the closing ratio is over 40%. Are you still saying that the phone call may be better?
No, I say don't fix what's not broken. If you already have a 90% show up rate to calls, then it shouldn't be a problem with, like anything that we're doing here. It's more so on if you're already experiencing issues with no shows, then that's something. So if you're already having a 90% show up rate, I wouldn't tweak what you're already doing. Especially if you've got the solid closing ratio too. I think that's fine.
I'm
It's
glad
also
that
like,
you, oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead, Alexa.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm glad that you are suggesting this because I always wanted to do phone calls because I can just utilize the script as guidance and so forth. So that's cool to hear this.
Yep, and that's honestly what's been the game changer for us with building our sales team is like the fact that they can use a script. You know, like we've built out our sales team. We have 3 reps now, so like the script is necessary when we're not the one that's selling the program anymore, you know? So like that's the other benefit of the phone call is that you're able to use different structure with your calls that keeps you kind of in the right flow and keeps you in control of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, like overall, I would say if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. But every offer is different also. So this is like everything is subjective to what your offer is. But if you are experiencing no-show problems, then that's kind of where these tweaks can come into play. And it's all about testing and seeing what optimizes from there.
Yeah, I think I may want to just test it because as when I bring on other when I bring on closers, um, that may be beneficial because I think one of the challenges or one of my hesitancies is that I think a lot of the people that we work with want to see me or someone that looks like me. And so, but if it's over the phone, then that may not be that may not even be relevant.
For sure. And that's another thing that I've noticed too is that like like as the owners of the program, a lot of times we can be even more effective in Zoom scenarios because, like body language, right? Different forms of communication outside of our words. But yeah, I noticed that with our sales team, when we made the switch from Zoom to phone calls with them, it was almost overnight. The fact that they had a better structure with like a script and the fact that they were on the phone, it just eased the sales experience overall. So I definitely recommend like anything in business is worth testing and iterating from,
Yeah, one of the biggest things also that helped us out too is it allowed us to get a lot more information based on like what the prospect and the sales rep like conversed about. Like the sales rep was able to take notes because they weren't worried about like not actually looking at the person during the call, and at the same time able to like structure the conversation based off of like a general script. But yeah, I mean to the point, overall, like I definitely think that, like in the coaching space in general, like, the Zoom connection can be very powerful, and like, that's kind of like one of the things, like if you do a 2-call close, I would probably like recommend like switching, that first call to be a phone call. And then, it's almost like another value add, like, hey, I want to take this to another level. Like I want to hop on Zoom with you and really, like see if this is a right fit type of thing for the second call. But for a first call situation, it's definitely relieved a lot of resistance, and at the same time allowed the conversation to be a little bit better because, there's more structure to it on the person taking it. But at the same time, they're able to gather notes. That was like a big thing that helped me and Mike out, is now we have like something to review based on the call. Whereas in the past, we asked the rep and it was almost like they even forgot what happened, because they were so focused on like that conversation in between the Zoom session. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, as far as new people, I can almost guarantee like it would help you out as far as onboarding new closers, just because it gives them a little bit more plug and play process that they can tap into versus them having to completely learn your offer and how to handle all of the objections and all of that type of stuff. Like it's much easier to get somebody that's seasoned with your offer to know that type of stuff versus somebody brand new, which I'm sure you already know. But yeah.
Yeah, hi, this is Carmen. I totally agree with the phone idea. In fact, I just got off the phone with a lead, and we talked. I guess we talked for 45 minutes, and I was able to work with her, a little bit, and it was on a free basis, and that gave her an indication of what I would be doing if she signed up with me. She's very positive. We had a good connection. She's very positive. So she's going to get back with me next week, and so that we can talk about what program she wants to sign up for. So I think that was a positive. But I did have a question, because I know you were talking about doing the video in the follow-up messages once they've booked a call. I actually created a personalized follow-up email, and so I'm not sure, was it ever used? Because in that email I actually had my picture, and I put in a paragraph of explaining what I would do and what that first conversation would entail, but I'm not sure whether or not it was used. Is there any way for me to check that?
Yeah, I can look right now, Carmen, just to confirm. But yeah, I remember us going through the workflow, so it should be in play. But I'll just double check just to confirm. I'll send you a screenshot so you can see where it would look.
Okay. Yeah, because my question is, then, if that wasn't working, if that's what the client or prospect received, and the information I included there didn't get them to want to show up for the session, then if I do a recording, I need to maybe tweak what I include in the conversation or in the content.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, no, I agree. Another thing is if it's directly spoken inside of the SMS reminders too. So I'm just looking at it right now. I see the photo here, and the introduction, I'm a certified intuitive counselor and healer, et cetera, et cetera. The story is all there. But oh yeah, it's referenced in the SMS as well. It says, Anthony, it's Carmen. I sent you an email from MBSH Inc. at email, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so
Okay.
that might be what we want to do, is make it a little bit more personable with a video. And it could be something as simple as you just holding your phone in front of your hand, or in front of your hand, in front of your face, and making that introduction that way. But yeah, no, I think that would probably be a good tweak, is, if you're able to get a quick video recorded, and we would plug that in as the intro, just to be a little bit more personable that way.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any questions? Anything they want to jam on? Mike, do you have anything else on your end? Or are you all set?
I think I'm good on my end. If nobody has any questions, then we can skedaddle and get back to work. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute.